Gilbert Arenas, American former basketball point guard. Former NBA star Gilbert Arenas arrested in illegal gambling probe. Former NBA All-Star Gilbert Arenas has been arrested, along with several other people, in connection with an illegal gambling business he allegedly hosted. A federal indictment claims the operation included high-stakes poker games held at a mansion in Encino, California, that was owned by Arenas. The 43-year-old Agent Zero of Woodland Hills is charged with 1 count of conspiracy to operate an illegal gambling business, 1 count of operating an illegal gambling business, and 1 count of making false statements to federal investigators, the U.S. Attorney's Office said in a release. At Arenas' direction, Arthur Katz, 51, of West Hollywood, staged the mansion to host the games, found co-conspirators to host the games, and collected rent from the co-conspirators on Arenas' behalf, the office explained. Also charged in the indictment and arrested in connection with the illegal gambling business charges are Gershman, Terevsky, Austria, and Cohen are accused of managing illegal pot limit Omaha poker games, among other illegal games, at the Encino mansion and collected a rake, a fee the house charged from each pot either as a percentage or a fixed amount per hand, and invited players to compete. Gershman is also accused of hiring young women to serve drinks, give massages, and companionship to the poker players in exchange for tips. However, they were charged a tax for working the games. Chefs, valets, and armed security guards were also hired for the games. Krochin is accused of working as a chip runner, according to the release. He's accused of tracking players' wins and losses, distributing poker chips to players and paid employees. Each of these defendants is charged with 1 count of conspiracy to operate an illegal gambling business and 1 count of operating an illegal gambling business, the release continued. If convicted, they would face a maximum sentence of 5 years in federal prison for each count. Gershman is an Israeli citizen. He and Valentina Kojokari, 35, of Woodland Hills, are charged with 3 additional counts: conspiracy to commit marriage fraud, and making a false statement on an immigration document. In early 2022, Gershman conspired with Kojokari to enter into a sham marriage for the purposes of obtaining permanent legal status in the United States and lied to immigration authorities to procure legal status for Gershman, who provided financial support to Kojokari in exchange for her participation in the sham marriage, the USAO said. Both Gershman and Kojokari submitted false information on their U.S. immigration forms, including Gershman's answers of no, as to whether he had ever been detained by any law enforcement official, and as to whether he intended to engage in illegal gambling or any other form of commercialized vice. Homeland Security Investigations Northridge Office, the Los Angeles Police Department's Major Crimes Division, Transnational Organized Crime Section, and IRS Criminal Investigation are investigating the case. All of the defendants, including Arenas, are set to appear in court for their arraignments on Wednesday afternoon in the United States District Court in Los Angeles. Gilbert Arenas, a name once synonymous with explosive talent on the basketball court, is now making headlines for all the wrong reasons. The former NBA star, known for his time with the Washington Wizards, was arrested on July 30, 2025, for allegedly running an illegal gambling operation from his Encino, California, mansion. Gilbert Arenas arrested for illegal gambling operation. On Wednesday, July 30th, federal prosecutors in California announced the arrest of Gilbert Arenas and 5 other individuals in connection with a high-stakes illegal gambling business. The 43-year-old former NBA All-Star faces serious legal trouble, including multiple federal charges: 1 count of conspiracy to operate an illegal gambling business, 1 count of operating an illegal gambling business, and 1 count of making false statements to federal investigators. Agent Zero captured. Former Warrior Gilbert Arenas arrested. Before the downfall, Gilbert Arenas was Golden State's rising star. As federal gambling charges resurface his name, Warriors fans are left wondering what could have been if Agent Zero had never walked away. Gilbert Arenas was arrested Wednesday on federal gambling charges, and somewhere in the Bay, a Warriors fan is staring at their championship banners wondering about the path not taken. Because before Agent Zero became a cautionary tale, before the guns, the injuries, The alleged gambling, he was our guy. The arrest feels like cosmic irony. Here's a player whose career trajectory changed because of a card game argument, now facing time in federal prison for running card games. But strip away the headlines, and you're left with the most fascinating what if in Warriors history. What happens if our most improved player winner never walked away? The draft day discovery that almost changed everything. Let's establish the analytical foundation here. The Golden State Warriors selected Arenas 31st overall in the 2001 draft. A second-round selection that produced more win shares than half the lottery picks from that class. How do you measure the organizational competence required to identify that level of talent in the second round, then measure the organizational incompetence required to lose him 2 years later? Arenas broke out in his second year with Golden State after only playing in 47 games his rookie season. He played and started in all 82 games, averaging 18.3 points per game and earning the NBA's Most Improved Player award in the process. That's not just development, folks. That's the kind of exponential player growth that transforms franchises. Think about what 18.3 points per game meant in 2002 to 2003. This was before the pace and space revolution, before the three-point explosion. Arenas was generating elite offensive production in an era where 95 possessions per game was considered fast-paced basketball. His breakout season put the Warriors in a bit of a pickle. Golden State had signed Arenas to a 2-year deal after the draft, which made him eligible for restricted free agency in the summer of 2003. Problem was, the Warriors were already over the cap. The CBA mechanics here are instructive. Golden State could only match offers up to the early bird exception, approximately $4.9 million annually. The Wizards offered Arenas a 6-year, $65 million offer sheet. When you're getting outbid by 3-1 margins on your own most improved player, that's not competitive disadvantage. That's front office malpractice. But let's run the alternative scenario through analytical rigor. Suppose the Warriors had managed their salary cap efficiently in 2002 to 2003. Suppose they'd prioritized Arenas over veteran mediocrity. What does that roster construction look like? You're building around a 22-year-old guard who can create his own shot, handle playoff pressure, and whose peak efficiency metrics project to all-star territory. That changes your draft strategy, your trade targets, your entire organizational philosophy. Instead of cycling through veteran role players hoping for playoff relevance, you're building sustainable competitive infrastructure around legitimate young talent. The strategic revolution that never happened. In December 2006, while Bryant had 45 points, Wizards star guard Gilbert Arenas dropped 60 points on him. He doesn't seem to have much of a conscience. I really don't think he does, Kobe continued. Some of the shots he took tonight, you miss those, and they're just terrible shots. Awful. You make them, and they're unbelievable shots. When Kobe Bryant, a player whose shot selection was legendarily aggressive, is questioning your conscience, you've reached a different stratosphere of offensive audacity. But here's the analytical insight Warriors fans miss. Arenas wasn't just a high-volume scorer. His shot profile was revolutionary. Before Steph made 30-foot heat checks feel surgical, Gilbert was letting them fly with no conscience and no analytics department to back him up. He was taking and making shots that wouldn't become mainstream until the Curry era. Deep threes, transition pull-ups, contested step-backs, Arenas was pioneering the shot selection that would eventually define modern basketball. In our alternative timeline, the Warriors don't just retain a star player, they retain the prototype for the offensive revolution that eventually won them championships. In December 2009, Arenas and Washington Wizards teammate Javaris Crittenton were involved in an incident where they brought guns into the locker room, which Arenas later said was the result of trash talk from a card game on a team flight. The gun incident effectively ended his prime years, but organizational context matters here. Would Gungate happen in a Warriors locker room? Probably El Mayo. The statistical legacy that never was. Arenas, 43, last played in the NBA in 2012 with the Memphis Grizzlies. The three-time All-Star averaged 20.7 points per game over parts of 11 seasons. But those career numbers reflect a player whose prime was truncated by injury and suspension, whose peak efficiency was achieved in an era where his skill set was undervalued. In our Warriors timeline, Arenas develops alongside the analytics revolution that eventually defined the franchise. His shot selection, which seemed reckless in 2006, becomes prescient by 2014. Most importantly, he becomes the organizational proof of concept for second-round development.